This is a quick tutorial on how to work a knitted cast on. This cast on is used in the Brownie Hat pattern, shown here, for the step where you connect the ear flaps to the brim of the hat. It is particularly useful for when you need to add stitches to an already existing piece of knitting, such as an ear flap. For the next few minutes, I will walk you through how to work the knitted cast on, and then how to work through that particular step of the pattern where we connect the ear flaps to the brim. Let's get started. Today I am using Marinated Yarn's Playtime Worsted yarn. It's beautiful worsted weight wool. Unlike a long tail cast on, you do not need to start with any particular length of yarn in order to work a knitted cast on. You only need to start with one stitch on the needle. So I'm going to make a quick slip stitch and slip it onto the needle. Tighten it up there. The knitted cast on is worked by knitting into this one stitch with your right hand needle, wrapping the needle as if you were making a stitch, pull it through, and then instead of sliding off the needle like you would normally do, you stretch out this loop that you just made and you bring it to the tip of the left hand needle and slide it on there. Pull out your right hand needle. Now your left hand needle has two loops on it, and you can just kind of tighten up that second loop that you just made. Now you have two stitches on the needle. So to make a third, you would go into the stitch that is closest to the tip, go into that one as if you're going to knit it, wrap your yarn around it, pull it through, pull it big enough that you can slide it onto the tip of the left hand needle, pull out your right hand needle tip, and then tighten up that stitch. Now I have three. You can do this as many times as you need to get the number of stitches that are required for your project. So go into the closest to the tip, work around it, pull it through, and slide it onto the left hand needle. That is how you work a knitted cast on, starting with one stitch and adding each stitch as you go. For the Brownie Hat pattern, I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to knit the smallest size. In the pattern, it has us start with 7 stitches worked with a knitted cast on. So right now I have 5. I'm going to get 6 and 7. At this point in the pattern, it says to turn the work so that your cast on stitches are in your right hand. So I'm going to turn this, put these stitches in my right hand. And then it says with the main color and the right side facing you, you're going to knit across the stitches of the first ear flap. So here's my ear flap that has been waiting very patiently on this double point needle. The working yarn for the ear flap has been cut and is just left hanging. So with my 7 stitches cast on here, I can now work across these stitches on the ear flap with the working yarn from my knitted cast on, not from the tail of the ear flap, don't mess up with that, but with the working yarn from the cast on, knit across, kind of tighten that up, the 26 stitches of this ear flap. Once you get to the end of the ear flap, the instructions will ask us to use the knitted cast on to then add on some more stitches that complete the rest of, or the next part of the brim of this hat. So after we've knit across these stitches, the directions say to turn your work so that the stitches are in your left hand again. So now that we have done all of this, the 7 stitches that we initially cast on with the knitted cast on, and then the stitches of our ear flap, we're going to turn the work, put it back in our left hand. Now we've got the wrong side facing us of the ear flap. And we're going to use our right needle and the stitch closest to the tip of the needle to then use a knitted cast on to cast on 34 more stitches. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch all of that, but you would go in, pull it through, and then put that newly created loop on the tip again, and repeat that until you have the number of stitches required by the pattern, 34 in my case. Okay, I'll be back in just a minute to show you how to work the second ear flap. I now have 34 stitches that I have cast on using a knitted cast on method beyond the ear flap. If you get lost as you're casting on and you forget which number or how many stitches you've created, you can go back and look. The telltale sign for your first stitch is you look at the normal purl bumps that you see on the backs of these stitches, and the first stitch that is missing that purl bump is the last stitch of the ear flap. So that first stitch means you went into that one first to create a new stitch. So I like to cover that up and then count from there to confirm that I have 34. So at this point in the pattern, it says to turn your work again so that your stitches are in your right hand. And then you'll pick up your second ear flap and you will work in the same way and knit across the stitches of this ear flap. Now the time that I do it this time, I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to do to take care of some of these ends as we go. So I'm going to use the working yarn that I'm already using for this knitted cast on. And when I go into the first stitch of this ear flap, I'm going to go in to knit it. Before I wrap it around, I'm actually going to pick up this main colored tail that was attached to the ear flap. And I'm going to hold these two ends double. And I'm going to knit probably the first 2 stitches with the ends held double. Now, in the grand scheme of things, when this hat is all done, you're not going to notice that these 2 stitches are knit held double. So it's not going to be a huge impact, but it starts weaving in the end of this ear flap and you don't have to go back and do it later. If you want to continue weaving it in, I like to put it in my left hand, and on every other stitch, I will kind of bring it over the needle, wrap my working yarn around it, and then bring it back. And what that does is lock it behind the stitch, as if you were to trap a float in a color work project. So I'll show you that again. I go into a stitch, I bring this over the needle, kind of put it in the way of the stitch, use my working yarn to wrap around, and then bring it out of the way. And then as you work across on the back side, it will be weaving in this main color end so that it just is one less thing for you to do at the end of your project. Again, not something you have to do, but could be useful. I'm going to drop that and knit across the rest of these. After you get to the end of the second ear flap, there are 7 more stitches to knit, and they are also using the knitted cast on method. So we get to the end here, and again, in order to do that knitted cast on, we need our stitches and our work to be in our left hand. So I'm going to turn my work to this side, pick up my needle tip, and we're going to create 7 more stitches using the knitted cast on. So wrapping around, pulling through, and this loop can be as big or as little as you want it as you put it onto the left hand needle tip. You can leave it really big, and then as you start to tighten it up, you don't want to get it too tight, because remember, you still have to you have to get your needle into that stitch to create a new one. So I like to leave it kind of loose and then tighten it up once I've already put my needle through. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the last one is 7. At this point, these are all of the stitches for the brim of the hat. Before you join in the round, go around, make sure that all of your stitches are facing the right way so that you haven't twisted anything. And all of your ends are hanging down. And then you will be able to join this in the round, place a marker, and keep working. I hope that's helpful for a knitted cast on and joining the ear flaps of the Brownie hat. This hat is found in the Ben & Jerry's Colorwork collection, a 3-piece accessories collection inspired by my favorite flavors of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, this one by the double fudge brownie flavor.